This is a very important statement that you passed along to me about
Okay.
why the Zionism stranglehold is so deep and it's become a real problem. And we're not going to get ourselves out of it unless we completely decide that we are going to cut it off once and for all. So here we are.
My name is Kobe. I was born and raised Jewish in Israel. Today I want to talk about something that's been on my mind. Why do we only hear about anti-Semitism but never about anti-Goyism, as taught in the Talmud? So what is anti-Goyism? It's a term that refers to prejudice or hostility by Jews towards non-Jews, often rooted in religious or cultural teachings. In the context of the Talmud, it includes passages that some interpret as promoting the idea that Goyim, non-Jews, are inferior or even enemies. The Talmud, which is our central text, contains passages that some interpret as promoting anti-Goyism. For instance, in the Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Avodah Zarah 26b, it said, "Even the best of the Gentiles should be killed."
Could you explain again what the origins of the Talmud is and what it really represents?
Why do you want me to do this? Why am I your token Jew? We had Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro on here to really explain the difference. And the Talmud is the text of Jewish teachings, and it is a compilation. It's a compilation of different rabbinical teachings and writings and passages. And it really is such a hodgepodge, which is why it really is hard to hone in, because it's like a lot of other documents, sort of like the Bible. There's parts of it that were done at one point, parts of it that were done at another point. Somebody came along and ripped out one part and put in another part. And the Talmud is like that. And so, you can find things in it that are hateful, that seem hateful. And they were at the time, and they are, but that doesn't mean everybody who reads the Talmud and practices Judaism follows every single literal aspect of the Talmud, any more than every practicing Christian doesn't necessarily, or Catholic, follow every single rule that there is. That's all.
That's a good point.
Another example in Avodah Zarah 36b, it says, "The daughters of idolaters, non-Jews, are in state of nidah," which means filth, from birth. The Sanhedrin 82a, "Whoever cohabits with a Gentile woman, zealots may strike him." And in the Tosafot commentary on Avodah Zarah 26b, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, "The best of the Gentiles kill him." Let's also
I mean, honestly, just hearing this, and this is coming from a person that lived in Israel and I guess left, and it's just,
Yeah.
I mean, what percentage of Jews subscribe to the Talmud, I think is an important question.
I don't know. Well, are you talking about Jews like I'm Jewish because I was raised by a Jewish family in a Jewish neighborhood and went to synagogue and stuff? Or people that are actually practicing Jews, that are practicing Judaism? Because I would suggest that most Jews are not practicing, other than they probably go to synagogue for high holidays, and maybe, they do a Seder during Passover. So they're not really practicing Jews. But people like Rabbi Shapiro, who is a practicing Jew, yes, he does practice reading, and he does do readings from the Talmud. I mean,
Well, listen, that was the one thing about Rabbi Shapiro that I did not agree with, and I actually thought was, quite telling in many respects, that he was essentially defensive of the Talmud and even defensive of some of the things that was said that was clear as day what they were implying, if not outright saying. And I understand that there is a sort of defense mechanism that has to be employed, that many of them feel that they have to employ because of where things are now. That doesn't mean that it's right. And at some point, you have to recognize why so many people that do not subscribe to this, but just simply for being Jewish, are going to be subject to the wrath of society coming to get them, because that's essentially where we're going. It's going to happen. I know that they don't want to hear it, but, silence is murder. It's not silence is wrong or silence is adjacency. It's outright murder. The silence that Jews in the United States as a collective have had over the last 2.5 years has caused hundreds of thousands of deaths, and in many cases of children. So yes, what he's saying is right. It doesn't mean that it isn't without pain and suffering that someone's gonna have to go through, but you know what? What's the old saying? It's not evil. It's the worst kind of evil is not when evil men do evil things, but when good men do nothing. It's something along those lines, but that's essentially what we're looking at.
Yeah.
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 Death, disease, destruction. We still have not evolved. Spock, Bones, where are we today? It's true. That's why Star Trek was for the enlightened. But, you've often said it's so weird how in the movies and even in books, people always seem to know which side to cheer for. Yet in reality, they don't actually practice.
Right. Right.
To talk about Jesus in the Talmud. He is referred to as Yeshu and is portrayed as a sorcerer and a deceiver. In Sanhedrin 107b, it is discussed that Jesus was stoned and hanged on the eve of Passover, portraying him as a false prophet and a sorcerer. Now, I've searched and I couldn't find any derogatory references to Jews in the Christians or Muslim texts. It seems that while we have these teachings in the Talmud, other religions don't have similar derogatory views about Jews. And I just want to be clear. Anti-Semitism is real, but so is Anti-Goyism. Both are forms of bigotry that need to be addressed. It's time to have an honest conversation about all forms of prejudice, not just ones that suit our Jewish narrative. So could it be that anti-Semitism is, in a way, Jewish karma for being a racist religion? I don't know. I think so. That's a heavy question, but one worth considering. If we acknowledge the derogatory views in our own texts, maybe we can start to understand the cycle of prejudice and work towards breaking it.
Oh, that sounds like such a novel idea, Jen. I
know he's so talking the crazy talk, but yeah, I mean, he's right. But to me, the premise of organized religion is inherently separating and exclusive and judging the other ones that are not your one. So,
well, would you classify him as an Ashkenazi?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you mean? Yeah. I mean, unless he were to say otherwise, I mean, maybe he's Iraqi, like Avi Shalom. I mean, there are definitely, but yeah, he seems to be living somewhere in the West, whether that's in the UK somewhere or Canada or here, I don't know, but
I think it's also fair to acknowledge that his statements regarding the bigotry that, the Talmud, I would say overall, you could say that it's a combination of the Jewish religion as a whole, but really what I think is the big issue here, there is a substantial portion of the world and the US population as a whole that is very aware now of the machinations of Jewish supremacy and what that represents. And when faced with it, now I'm not saying they're all like this, but when faced with that realization, this great awakening, if you will, the Jewish population as a whole, and again, I hate using that term because Judaism is a religion. It's not they treat it as a culture. I'm a Jew. That's your religion. It's not your culture.
It's almost like they need to be saying Ashkenazi. And that is, here's the thing that I know, that when I submit for a DNA test, right, and it comes back as Ashkenazi Jewish, then that indicates that it has to be more than just a religion, right? Well, the Jewish part isn't, except for the fact that after so many years of intermarrying and inbreeding and all that, it is kind of now. I mean, I know it isn't, so, but kind of. I don't know how to explain it then. But yeah, no, it's a religion for sure. But Ashkenazis, yeah, I mean, that's a whole different concept.
We'll finish it up.
So next time you hear about anti-Semitism, remember to ask, what about anti-Goyism? Let's talk about both, because true justice means recognizing all forms of discrimination, no matter where they come from.
The decision the decision to bury their heads in the sand and pretend that there isn't a Jewish supremacy problem in the hierarchical leadership class, if you will, or just the affluent class that is predominantly Jewish, to pretend that that's not a problem. I'm sorry?
The Epstein class.
Well, sure, but this is also, it is the ruling class. And this is why I've often said that the biggest problem with Jews in general is that they typically come from the upper class. And when you really get down to it, and the breaking of capitalism in the United States, and once capitalism breaks in the United States, it will break all over the world, because that's basically what's happening. But what you're also noticing is that it's always been a class fight, always. We're not done with the show yet, but if we bring the conversation full circle to the key story that jump-started the live stream tonight, that is a class war. It happens to be that the billionaire CEO is a Zionist Jew, but he's also somebody who very reflectively shows that it's not a stereotype. It's real. It's very real that the working class, the Goyim, if you will, are like, I'm lighting this on fire because I can't take this shit anymore. You think he's the only one who's thinking about doing this? You think he's the only?
At least he's punching up, man. That's the Luigi nature of it.